Happy Saturday, Broncos country. Welcome to a very special episode of Let's Talk Broncos. Today, I'm joined by the Mario Vetanze, and the guys are here with me as well. How are y'all doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. It's a little bit of a different day to be recording, and I like it. I kind of like the Saturday time pod. I like it. I think this will come out Monday, right? So for everyone listening, Monday.
I think we released it today.
I don't know. We're pre-recording.
It's coming out today?
Yeah, I think we'll release it today.
I like it.
Well, then it'll be out today. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we finally got Mario to sign the contract. He kept ducking us, but finally got him to put his name on the contract, show up, stop ducking the fight, and I'm excited for this episode.
The only fight that I'm ducking is with the kangaroo.
No ground game.
Caden knows what's up. Caden knows. We've got Caden Stearns on the record right now. I would bop a kangaroo, etch it in granite.
I don't doubt that Broncos safety professional football player Caden Stearns would knock out a kangaroo. I have heavy doubt that either of you two yokels would be able to do it.
I mean, I've sent about 60 videos of fat men wrestling with kangaroos, and I can confidently say no ground game.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem if Zach is fighting a kangaroo. His neck is way too damn long. That is a very sensitive, exposed area, okay? One bad shot, Zach's gone from the jugular. It's R.I.P. Zach Seegers. And then we have nobody to cover the buffs.
It's all about height. It's all about height. From all the kangaroo videos I've seen, it's people like, oh man, there's a kangaroo on my property. What am I going to do? And they just lean on them and problem solved. If you've got the height advantage on the kangaroo, you're golden.
Let's not get bogged down into this. I apologize for even bringing that up. I don't know what I was thinking.
That's
it's a really bad way to start the show.
It's a really bad way to garner attention for a show. And you know what else is? Trying to take your top defensive back and say that you should move them to wide receiver. Mario, I'm going to start the show with that question. Is that a legitimate proposition for Broncos?
Of course not. I mean, I think there are two groups of people. The people that know that very little of what comes out of D-Mac's mouth is serious. I mean, he's become a shock jock kind of person. Like, he doesn't believe the stuff that he says. Like, he's doing it for the reason, or for reasons, right? He's doing it for attention. And honestly, the problem that I have is, like, I get it. You need clicks. Your station is in a torrential downfall. You have to bring attention to you any way possible. Like, I get it, dude. Like, that's the business, right? But where I have a problem with it is you have nothing else to offer. Okay, so you have to say ridiculous stuff like this so that people pay attention to you. And I'm not, saying this for shock value. Like, this is really what it is. They have nothing of substance to say, because if they did, they would say things of substance and not about how the best cornerback in the entire NFL should play a different position. So if the cameras are off and nobody is recording, D-Mac doesn't actually believe that. So the issue that I have is, if you're going to say something and you have the power of a microphone, put conviction behind it. It's like, if you want to have a hot take, like, that's totally fine, but you should believe in what you say. Stand behind your shitty ass takes. Lord knows that we've all had some of them. Like, that's part of this business. But don't say stuff just to say it. It's so disingenuous. And then you get people who maybe aren't devout fans or who aren't really tuned in to, like, what the Broncos are. Like, maybe they're just a casual fan and that's how they enjoy football. And honestly, if they're listening to that station, they're probably a casual fan. And again, that's okay, because that's their market. That's why there are other subsidiaries, podcasts like what you guys do, DNVR, Altitude, like all these other mediums where you can get actually good content. Or if you're just, a casual fan, like, I don't watch the Broncos every single week, I don't follow around, and again, like, that's fine if that's how you get your information. But then if you're listening to the fan and you hear something like this, then you might actually put credence on it of, like, oh, yeah, that's a really good point. If PS2 is so good, he should just play both sides of the ball. People that don't know any better might actually hear that and take it seriously. So it's just a shame that someone that has that kind of draw and has that kind of power says something so unbelievably stupid and knows that it's stupid and knows that you're going to get blowback for it, but there's no conviction there. Like, you only do it for clout. That's pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So long story short, no. Of course PS2 shouldn't play wide receiver. It's the dumbest shit that I've ever heard. It's the dumbest shit that anybody has ever heard.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Mario. Thank you for putting that out there, because the number one aspect is if you want to have entertainment and information at the same point, that's not what you're going to be looking for, because you're not going to be looking for outrage and outlandish claims just so someone will interact. When you get ratio to that point, there's a reason that you're releasing that type of information, Zach.
And it's pathetic that they think that, like, it's cool that players are calling them dumb, right? Like, Caden came out and said he's dumb. And they think it's hysterical. Like carry yourself with some respect. My God, you want to be called dumb? You are dumb. Sorry.
You're
stupid.
fine.
It's so stupid.
I like it. We've got the anger translator on this show. It's great. I can to say something a little political here, and Mario can clean it up for me. I love it.
If I get more upset, I'm going to start sounding like Stephen A. Smith.
I think, in the media game, what I've learned is there's those that want to talk about football and want to analyze it. And I think there are those that want to entertain and want to perform and want to do a show. And, power to those two parties, they'll do whatever they want to do. But what I feel very confident about is when people watch this show, when people engage with Joey's writing, with my writing, when they engage with the fan cave with Bree, you're hearing what we think. And we'll be wrong plenty, to Mario's point. I'm sure I'll be wrong plenty. But I'm not saying the Broncos should cut Russell Wilson for shits and giggles. I'm not saying Drew Lock is a bust for shits and giggles. I'm saying it because I believe it.
Drew just needs the right opportunity.
Yeah, this is just that's
a good way to kick off. Next segment.
Why take these people seriously? If they are demonstrating to you that they aren't interested in informing you or seriously covering the sport, then why are we taking their coverage seriously? Take it like WWE is great and it has its place in the world, but we're not viewing it the same way we view the Olympics. It's an entertainment medium, and that's great. More power to them. It's an entertainment medium.
What's also been an entertainment medium for Broncos country this week has been the NFL Combine, and it's a perfect segue into the idea of having Denver media members out there competing in the Combine, or what maybe the LTB's RAS scores would be. I've got plenty short arms, and I don't think I can bench press 225, but surely I would try. Who here in this current room would be able to score the highest? And I'm taking myself out of the running already.
I'll tell you guys right now.
Wait, am I a part of this, or is this between Joey and Zach?
I think you have to be a part of it. You're in
the
show.
Then Mario's winning. Then I'm also winning on Mario.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fair.
I think I'm getting the lowest score because I will not be participating. A bag 0.0. It's going to be crazy. Or I'm going to get the highest. You won't even see my name on the list. Yeah. So it's really between Mario and Zach here.
Joey's one of these guys. He's going to let the film speak for itself. He's opting out of the combine. He's opting out of the workouts. He's like, you know what? If you want to see what I'm all about, cut the film.
For someone who's like, the confidence matters when fighting a kangaroo, but count me out of running that 40-yard.
No, it's really just like a laziness factor. Like, if I were like I don't really care enough about that. If I were fighting a kangaroo, it'd be like I have a point to prove, especially after all these conversations.
The fight.
Stop circling back to that.
The kangaroo fight is a get to. The combine is a have to.
Got it. Well, yeah, Mario would probably be point blank as he flexes it out over there. But Zach, go ahead.
Discreetly.
Yeah, I don't know if we'd even hit a 0.5. Who would get the highest? I think it'd be Mario. I think Bree or Joey are saying. I think I'm last because I don't think I'm fast. I don't think I'm strong. I think I'm getting low scores across the board. I don't think I'm getting saved by any event except for maybe like my height could kind of bail me out at some positions. But even then, like Joey's got me beat.
What's your wingspan there, Seegers?
So they don't do wingspan in RAS, and I wouldn't know it off the top of my head. But like if we're running, I'm looking at Vontaze Burfict. If you run a 5-second flat 40 at linebacker, and 3-second 20-yard splits, almost no bench press reps, 8-second 3-cone, just really poor numbers for a linebacker. Not one of the craziest testing positions on the field. You're getting a 0.2. Like, I don't even know. It might be like the battle or the race to 0.1.
I think you're exactly right. Anybody that could put any semblance of a score on the board, I think would be the winner. If anybody can get like above 0.0.
Yeah, anything above a flat 0. People underrate these NFL athletes, even the offensive linemen. You had the great tweet where it was like quote tweeted with what you think your 40 time.
Dude, I did that on purpose to see how many people are
lying.
Delusional. Well, here's the thing. Like, maybe they're lying. I mean, yeah, plenty of people lied. Like, do you know how many people responded? They're like, I could run a 4.5, and it's like, no, I guarantee that you can't. Stephon Diggs can't run a 4.5. Like, you're not running a 4.5. But it's people like I honestly don't think that they understand how unbelievably gifted these people are. Because here's the thing: like, if somebody were to go out and run a 5-second 40, like a normal person, that's really fast. But see, we've been disillusioned from reality where we see this where it's like, oh yeah, like DJ Turner just ran a 4.27. And I'm sure there are people out there where it's like, well, yeah, that's fast, but it's not like 4.25. Like, there were a handful of guys that ran faster than him. It's like people just don't get it. So all those people that were responding who thought that they could run sub 5, 99% of them are not sniffing anywhere in the 4s.
Yep.
And it was funny, the people, and especially like some of the people that thought that they were serious, and I'm not going to name names, but there's some people like, yeah, I think that I could get sub 5
with a week of training.
It just
without
takes
popping
you
a hammy.
It just takes you a week. Like, yeah, some of these guys are training literally just for the 40 for months. But yeah, I'm sure you could shave a 1.5 seconds off of your 40 with a week of training and nothing to go off of and have no idea how to train for the 40. But sure, you got this, bud.
Katie Nolan, when she had her late show on, I forget if it was Fox Sports or what channel it was. It was short-lived, unfortunately. It was a good show, though. She found Twitter users that had said, like, oh, I could run way faster than such and such player, and was like, all right, and flew them out to ESPN. They didn't tell them what they were flying them out for until they got there. And we got them all lined up. They were like, hey, you got a special fan contest, or I forget the whole setup. And then they broke it out and they're like, all right, do you remember this tweet you sent? Line it up. Let's run the 40. And they timed them all. It's a pretty sweet bit.
I would invest in this endeavor for LTB to pull the same thing. Like, I'm ready to go. Let's get them on the field.
I want to see, like, let's pull the people that responded to my tweet that we know. And it's like, all right, you have 1 month. However you think that you're going to prepare, if you get within 0.5 of a second, we'll give them a 0.5 of a second buffer. And if they get it, maybe they win something. That's what you guys should do. And we'll go out there and we'll film it. It'll be fantastic content.
It will. We're going to release it on the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube page. So you're going to want to make sure you're over there subscribed and keeping track of all that, because it's going to be a fun time. Mario, were there any athletes this week from the combine that you think the Broncos should be taking careful consideration for, or that you wish they had the picks to be able to pursue?
Well, sure, Bree, it's the combine. There's a lot of guys out there.
I'll crack it off.
Wow.
Sorry. Okay. I'm gonna give you just 2 names. Okay. I love Julius Brents out of Kansas State. I think that he is a guy who he's probably going to shoot up the boards. He might not be there in the 3rd round. Like, he's projected 3rd round, but he's having a good combine. He had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. So I would think that he would go in the 2nd round somewhere. But if he is there for one of the Broncos' 2 third-round picks, I know that corner isn't the most pressing need necessarily. Obviously, that's offensive line, and I think they'll address it a little bit in free agency. But he's one of those guys that I think if he falls there, he's a phenomenal talent. He's a big, long, strong, quick corner. He's almost like diet PS2, right? Like, we might not see another Pat Surtain in terms of like measurables and how big he is and how well he plays, but he's pretty close. Like, that's not the comp, but Brents is kind of in that same breath in terms of being a really big physical corner who moves really well for his size. Another guy that Ryan Edwards, if you follow him on Twitter, he's been posting like different guys and things that they're saying. And so Chris Rodriguez Jr., the running back out of Kentucky, said that the only formal visit that he got was from Denver, which was surprising to me. And maybe this just kind of speaks to the overall value of running backs, where they're just not valued very highly. And it's not like Chris Rodriguez is going to be, some phenom superstar, but really hard runner, big guy, fights for extra yardage, good vision, good anticipation, but doesn't have like that elite speed. And kind of circling back to what we're talking about with the 40, I think he ran it in like 4.55. And it's hilarious because that's considered like not fast, but it is in fact very fast.
Yeah.
And he's projected in the 6th round. And we all know, I know they said that Javonte is going to be ready for the season. I hope so, obviously. But even if he is, he's not going to be Javonte right away. He is going to have to work back, whether that's physical, whether that's kind of like mental and preparing himself to take hits and getting over that hurdle. That's kind of like the last hurdle that a lot of people don't realize when you're coming back from a bad injury like that. It's like physically you might be perfectly fine, but you have to go out there and play a very dangerous collision sport. So it's like, are you mentally ready and prepared to take hits like that and to be able to go out onto that field? And so Rodriguez is a guy who's, again, similar to Javonte. He's a little bit bigger, not quite as explosive, but if he falls to the 6th round, and he could even fall to the 7th, because this is a remarkably deep running back class. The Broncos need to load up on running back. It didn't make any sense that they didn't draft one last year or even bring one in the undrafted free agency. So I think Rodriguez would be a really good target. So those are just 2 names that kind of stuck out to me so far. And it's tough because you never know where these guys are going to fall. And there's so many draft crushes that I have, but you have to think of guys that are going to fall to the 3rd round. So it's like someone who's really good that stands out, but somehow slips through the cracks. And then another question, just going off of that, and I'll kind of post this to all of you. Do the Broncos address their backup quarterback situation in the draft? I think that they would bring someone in. Zach, I know you like Jacoby Brissett. I'm on board with that. You guys know I love Gardner Minshew. He's my spirit animal. Even like a Marcus Mariota, as long as it doesn't cost too much, you have to have a capable backup. I mean, you don't need a world killer, but you need to have someone that's competent. But if you're addressing it in the draft, if a hooker falls to you in the 3rd round, I know he's going to be 25 or 26 going into next season. He's coming off of that injury. The nice thing is he doesn't have to play this next year. And then if things fizzle out with Russ, I think he's a really good potential option to have. The only issue is if he falls to the 3rd round, you obviously have a lot more pressing needs. Do you take a quarterback? Probably not, unless they're really high on Hooker. And then, do you consider a Stetson Bennett? He's not going to go until the 6th or 7th round because he's going to be 25 or 26, again, like Hooker. Doesn't quite have the measurables and intangibles or the skill level of a Hooker. But I see Bennett being a good leader, a guy who can come in. He's going to be one of these journeyman quarterbacks, right? He'll come in, he can win games when you need him to. Probably not going to be a long-term starter for any team, but if they were to, nab him in the 6th or 7th round, I wouldn't hate it. Mm-hmm. So where are you guys falling on that? Do they address quarterback at all in the draft?
I would. I would draft a guy. Why not? Draft a guy. And honestly, I don't think the Broncos are in position to say we can't draft a quarterback in the 3rd. The 3rd round, you're just getting there and you're drafting the best player available. In my mind, you can't project who's going to be there in the 3rd. You can't. Once you get to those areas of the draft, in my opinion, the odds of these players working out to begin with are getting lower. So I'm not going to just take the best tackle, when really he might be 15th of my available players on the board because I need a tackle. I'm drafting the guy that I think can play football and can maybe get a roster spot on my team. You mentioned the quarterbacks. Honestly, people kind of hate him, but I kind of like I like DTR a little bit. I do. If DTR was somewhere in where the Broncos are picking, I would take a DTR. Why not? See what he has. I know about all the physical traits, everything like that. Does he make a lot of stupid decisions? 1,000%. But now I'm putting him with the Sean Payton. See what happens. I don't know. There's different guys like that I could possibly see taking. Stenton Bennett. I mean, my big thing with him is the age, man. It's whoa.
Well, but that's the thing. That's why he's going to fall, right? So the only reason I throw that out is how often are you going to find a Brock Purdy who's really successful because he's with the 49ers? It's like, you're not going to find a Tom Brady. He's an outlier. He's an anomaly.
Okay.
But if you get a guy like Bennett, who, if he was 21, 22 years old, coming off of everything that he did, and like if he's the same guy, he's a few years younger, then he's getting taken a few rounds earlier, in my opinion. So that was the only reason that I threw that out there, because then you don't need to invest like one of your quote unquote premium picks on a Stetson Bennett. He falls to the 6th or 7th round, or even if he doesn't get drafted, which I don't see happening, but I guess you never know, then I would think for sure he would be a priority signing. But that was just why I threw that out there, because I figured you don't have to spend a 3rd or 4th or even a 5th on him.
You don't. You could just draft a guy. You just have to be willing to say that this guy, if this guy works out, that means that he's a backup pretty much. Like that's the way I would have to go into it, knowing is like, I feel comfortable taking a guy with the potential of being a backup here. You know what I mean? Because that would be a win. If the 6th round quarterback.
Zach, you look like you're just dying to get in on this.
I'm waiting, man. Y'all hogging all the takes. I wouldn't. The Broncos have 5 picks this year, and they have needs all over the place. And because of how they've built this thing, which is big swings on Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, they don't have a lot of other assets to build their roster on. Like, we talk about the shallowness at defensive line. That might really rear its head if Dre'Mont Jones leaves. At linebacker, you might be losing Alex Singleton. And I think they're set up to survive that this offseason. But, okay, now you don't have any depth behind Jonas Griffith and Josie Jewell. And we saw how many injuries at linebackers the Broncos have endured these past 2 seasons. At safety, you're going to be losing some of your depth there with Kareem Jackson. Like, you're just starting to lose these pieces. Blocks are coming out of the Jenga tower. And I don't know if it'll fully collapse now, but you've got to start supplementing that. And you're not going to be able to have the financial avenues to do that as much with the big Russell Wilson contract and some of these other big contracts that have been signed recently. And you don't have a lot of draft picks to do it either. So I look at what the Broncos need from a quarterback, and they need one of 2 things. They need someone who can be the long-term answer if Russ doesn't work out. And they need someone that can justify them sitting Russell Wilson on the bench this season. Because of certain injury guarantees in Russell Wilson's contract. If it goes bad this year and they want to move off him, he has injuries that go into effect during this season. So they'll have to bench him for a while so he doesn't hit, I think it's 15 games. They'll have to bench him for a while. So they need a Jacoby Brissett, a Marcus Mariota, a functional quarterback that I think they can justify that benching with more so than a DTR. I also think when you look at the history, yes, there are the Tom Bradys and whatnot out there, but the history of late round quarterbacks becoming the long-term answer and unseating the person ahead of them is so rare. I think more likely than not, you'd be burning a pick on a Brett Rippon type. And I think you can already find that. I would definitely spend a pick on a quarterback in 2024. That pick is already spent in my mind. You've got to be drafting the quarterback next year. But this year, your capital is so thin, and you have enough like wide receiver, running back, tight end could use some help. Defensive line is pretty pressing. Edge, cornerback needs some help. Like, there are places that are getting dangerously shallow for the Broncos, and you only have 5-6 picks to address them.
I'm worried about how to frame this next question because I don't want Mario to be sarcastic and ruin it for me. So the
you didn't want sarcasm, then you shouldn't have had me on the show.
I knew better, honestly. And this is why we
you
waited
don't
so
know
long.
better.
Well, that's true. I keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Brett Rippon
Brett
obviously
just took a little shot. Oh, it's going to be like that. Okay.
A restricted free agent. You have not a whole lot of choices here when Zach mentions losing key pieces, chess pieces here with the Denver Broncos roster. I'm worried about a lot of these guys not being retained. There's a bevy of a list, a lot of running backs here, but I think one of the more important ones that I think we all want to talk about is the Broncos retaining Dre'Mont Jones, which all of us have expressed at different frequencies, but I think all the same levels of hesitation of letting Dre'Mont Jones walk away from the Denver Broncos. We know that he wants to get paid. He should get paid. He deserves that. The fan base can be a little touchy when it comes to that subject of whether or not they believe he is worth that amount of money. I'm here to tell you, I think the supply and demand shows that if you go and try to find a similar talent out there, you're not going to be able to match what Dre'Mont Jones brings to the defense. But Mario, how imperative is it that the Denver Broncos keep him here in Denver? And how much of a likelihood do you think that is?
I mean, I've thought that that's the most important piece and the most important thing that they need to address going into this offseason. The way that I see it in terms of not franchise tagging him and letting him test the market, and I just want to clear this up for everyone that maybe doesn't understand exactly how this works. It's not like they're just letting him go and then he like just has the freedom to sign wherever he wants, and the Broncos won't have a chance to match or bring him back. Like, that's not what's going on, right? I think the decision to not franchise tag him was kind of out of respect to him. They're like, look, we're on your side. We want to get something done. We're not going to handcuff you. We're not going to make you feel some sort of way like we're forcing you to be here. Go ahead and test the market. See what your market is. And honestly, like this is a good strategy for them, because worst case scenario, a team like Chicago, who has a ton of cap space, they offer him $17 million. And then they can go back to Denver and say, hey, Chicago's offering us $17 million a year. And Denver can say, well, we're not prepared to go that high. We'll go as high as maybe 16-3, 16-4. But you don't have to pack up and move your whole family to Chicago. You don't have to go play for, the worst team coming off of the worst record this year, a team that has maybe a quarterback, a decent defense, and then literally nothing else. Or you could stay in Denver, where we know that you like it. You like your teammates. You like your positional coaches. It sounds like he is bought into Sean Payton, or he's a fan of the Sean Payton hire based on what I've heard. And so maybe you hit him with that. It's like, look, we're not going to go as high as Chicago, but you sign with us. You're familiar with everything. You know exactly what you're going to get. You don't have to move. And are we really going to quibble over $500,000-$600,000 a year, which is a ton of money to us? But when you're talking about 16.5 to 17 million, it's like, how much is it really worth it? And then it's also going to be based off of the guaranteed money. So just to clarify that, it's not like they're just letting him walk. They're letting him test the market, because then best case scenario, he goes out and then maybe the market isn't as hot for him as he and his agent think. So then maybe he's not getting the offers that he thought that he was. He can go back to Denver, and then maybe Denver saves money. The way I understand it, the last offer that they made was for 15.9, which was declined. But the thing is, if you're a free agent, I want to clarify this really quick and just step outside the box real quick. The people that see this, they're like, well, these athletes are so selfish. They're so greedy. Like, all they care about is money. It's like, yeah, this is their job.
Right.
Shouldn't they want to make as much money as they possibly can? The average NFL lifespan of a career is 3 years. So for you to sit there and say, well, it's just selfish that you're talking about this much money. It's like, you might never have another chance. Like, what if this is his last contract? I mean, I'm sure it won't be, but you don't know what could happen. This could be the only opportunity that he gets to make so much money that his grandchildren aren't even going to have to work, right? I mean, maybe just children in today's market, but that's another discussion for another day. The bottom line is, you should not fault a player for wanting to try and make as much money as possible. And I think fans have a difficult time separating that. It's like, this is the team that you grew to love. This is the team you've rooted for your whole life. You are devoted to this team. These players aren't necessarily. I think fans forget that these players don't necessarily grow up rooting for the team that they play for. In fact, it's really rare that happens. And so they don't have any sort of devotion to this team the way that fans do. And so it's like, well, yeah, you drafted me, you gave me an opportunity, and that's all great, but I'm going to make as much money as possible. So anyway, circling back, I think the Broncos need to match. Maybe they go as high as 16.5. I would be surprised if they went that high. But I also think that like 16.2 or 16.3 would get it done. I don't know, Bree, we had talked about this off the air a while ago, and kind of from both sides. Like, you look at the team aspect of it, and if they offered 15.9, it's like, you offered 15.9, what's another $300K on the cap, right? Mm-hmm. But then you look at it from Dre'Mont's side, and it's like, man, it's $300K. Is there really that big of a difference? And so I think you have to see where it's coming from, where it's like, well, the team has a little bit more money to allocate than Draymont can stand to lose, right? So I think they need to open up the wallet just a little bit. And I don't want to say this really quick, and then I'll let you guys jump in. If you're only looking at his sacks and you're looking at his box score, you're not allowed to have this discussion. I'm sorry. Draymond is one of the most important pieces of this entire defense. It's Surtain, Simmons, and then in my opinion, it's Dre'Mont. Okay. That's how good he is. And it's not all about sacks. It's about pressures. It's about what he opens up. It's about what he does in the run game. It's about so much more than that. And the thing is, if you have a piece like that, like this is exactly where you should put your money towards. The ideal logic is that you have the best players and you keep them. So if he is one of your best players, then you need to keep him. And people act like the Broncos are spending their money. I promise if you're watching this, if they overpay for Dre'Mont Jones, you won't owe anything. I swear. It is not going to cost you a dime.
Well, tell that to my season ticket prices. Go ahead, Zach.
I think we're having this conversation through a microscope, and it's silly. Who cares if it's 16.5 versus 15.9? The fact that he was asking for 16.5, I would have offered him 17.5 and known it was solidified and I was getting a steal. It's a joke. Like to the whole thing about like, I understand well, maybe this guy's market is too rich for us and like we should just let him test it. I'm having that conversation if Dre'Mont comes and he's asking for 24, 23. Because just from a math perspective, that's where it's at. Jonathan Allen signed a 16.5 APY deal in 2021. That deal, if you look at the percentage of cap it took up then and carry it into the 2023 season, if you were to sign a deal now, eating up that same amount of cap on an average annual basis, that'd be $22 million now. The cap skyrockets. That whatever an overpay is, call it $2 million, call it $3 million, call it a $5 million overpay on Dre'Mont Jones. It gets erased so quickly. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When it comes to, and also there's a million ways you can get out of it. So few of these deals are, see it all the way through. Generally, like the Randy Gregory 5-year deal. We knew the moment that was signed, he wasn't seeing the end of that 5-year deal. He's going to get cut after year 2, after year 3, or after year 4. I almost bet my life on it. Nothing to do with him. That's just how NFL contracts work. And so you get to this situation, the Broncos can easily get out of it, even if it does become an overpay. You know what they can't easily do? Find another Dre'Mont Jones, especially when they have very little cap space and very little draft picks. Joey was just talking about how normally with these third-round picks, it's like, can they even play in the NFL? That's what it is. It's not, will they be a Dre'Mont Jones type? And I think Mario's right. Some people look at the box scores and underrate Dre'Mont Jones's impact. You can even box score scout. Look at Dre'Mont Jones as a top 20 defensive tackle in the sport. And I think acknowledge he's probably going to be worth that $15 million deal because he's going to be hard to, or that $16.5 million deal, because it's going to be hard to replace him. Very, very difficult. And it's already a position of need for the Denver Broncos. In my opinion, free agency decisions should always be rather than, is this guy worth 23 or 21? You're playing the wrong game. Is he worth signing at all for that role? Because obviously everyone's a different conversation. But Dre'Mont Jones, for the role of star interior pass rusher, is it worth paying him to do that job? 100%. I see 0 injury red flags, serious ones. I know he's been nicked here or there, but 0 serious injury red flags, 0 serious off-field flags. And he's considerably gotten better year over year. He's only 26. We're talking about a 3-year deal. He won't even be 30 by the time it's done. It's so silly to me. Keep the guy. The fact they're even letting it get this far, I think, is a mistake on their end. And I know how letting him walk can patch up the relationship. Patch it up by giving him more money. Offer him 17. It's still a bargain for the Broncos, and then you don't have to worry about the Bears poaching him.
Joey.
Yeah. You guys both said it absolutely perfect. I would absolutely pay him. I think Zach is hitting on this point, and I'll just reemphasize it real quick. Like, it's really, who are you replacing him with? Like, sometimes the overpay is a little worth it. Like, if it's $2-3 million overpay, that's worth keeping Dre'Mont Jones rather than just opening another hole. I was making that same argument with like Garrett Bowles at one point, because it's you have to calculate for that, because if you make a roster where everyone's just paid exactly their worth, and that sounds fantastic, but it's just not reasonable. There are going to be players that get overpaid, and that might be worth it. When you look at how everything's adding up, and you're looking at is he really the 5th best defensive tackle? That's just not how it works. It's just not how any of this works. And I'm sorry, but it's just not. So I would bring back Dre'Mont Jones for sure. Zach also said how much he's gotten better year after year, and that is absolutely the truth. What I can't stand is how the people that don't want to sign a player, they come up with these false narratives of the reason why they don't want to pay him. Like, I keep seeing all of this, well, he's absolutely terrible in the run takes and stuff like that, and it's driving me insane because, okay,
people
sure,
just say stuff, man.
Yes, it's just like that. Sure, that was a knock on him when he was coming out of college, but year after year, he's gotten better. Is he elite? No, I wouldn't call him elite. He's not Mike Purcell run defender, but he is a guy that is gotten better every single year at it. And, when they do get better, give him their flowers for it. He's gotten better at it, and he deserves his money. There's no reason to tear down his game in the process.
And can we talk about the idea of an overpay as well? Because I think there's this misrepresentation of that an overpay is somehow a team extenuating themselves past their ability to do so, when honestly it's just a reset of the market. Mario and I discussed that last week on the Fan Cave of how it's just a contract way of extending those prices. Russell Wilson reset the QB market. Dre'Mont Jones is going to reset the defensive end market. So it's something that I think people don't really consider when they start talking about figures, just because they hear from these platforms that it's an overpay. That's the same iteration of using a buzzword like a player's coach or a adult in the room. Like, we get these buzzwords in our head and people start repeating them. They go, well, it'll be an overpay. What exactly do you mean by that? Do you know exactly how much that affects the cap space? So I think that people get it in their head that they don't really necessarily understand what a contract does to the market. And I think Dre'Mont Jones's predicament and situation accurately displays why it would just be a reset, and it would be a good thing for the Denver Broncos to keep him on the team. A lot of other things that are coming up this week are the idea, as the free agency period is coming up, Dre'Mont Jones being one of them. Guys, I want to talk about a couple of other people on this list, but are there any other free agents that you think the Broncos can either A, move on from and it's okay, it's their time, or B, have to retain?
I have a great little thing that ties into this. That says
you do have a great little thing.
Jesus Christ. Zach Stevens, I saw a tweet out. I think it was on DNVR's podcast. They were doing a game where they were like throwing out contract amounts for players, and I think they were probably a little low on Dre'Mont Jones and a little high on Dalton Reisner.
Yeah, they said 15 mil for Drake.
Yeah, or I thought they even said 13, but we'll say 15. Like 15 mil for Dre'Mont or 10 mil for Dalton Reisner. And to me, that just like captures it so well. Like, Dalton Reisner has been a problem for the Denver Broncos at left guard, but the free agent offensive line market is so scary that guys like Juwan James become the highest paid tackles ever, and guys like Dalton Reisner make 10 million. Like, it's sketchy. And then you go to the defensive line market, and I just think I don't know. I don't want him to lose Dre'Mont. It's crazy to me. The people I think I really want to see them retain, top of mind right now, is Alex Singleton. I don't think anyone expected them to be in this predicament. I think it's a good problem to have. If push comes to shove, they have a solid backup plan. But I don't know. I think fans will probably value Singleton a little more than the league will. I don't think Singleton, like, he had an amazing season, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he like overhauled the narrative on him. I think people still know more or less what Alex Singleton is. Or maybe not the narrative.
NFL record-breaking Alex Singleton? I don't know. I just feel like maybe it
handsome as hell, Alex Singleton. You have to have good-looking players on your team, Zach. You can't have a team full of uggos, because then no one gives a shit about your team.
They're the Bash brothers together. Go ahead.
It showed how good he can be, but I don't think it made anyone think like he's an elite linebacker in the NFL. I think he was put into a very good situation and he played at an elite level. But I think the same limitations you would have seen in Alex Singleton's game like last offseason. Those athletic limitations still exist, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't think his value, I don't think he's going to be making top of linebacker market money, nor should he. But if you can bring him back on like a 1-2 year deal worth somewhere between $3 and $5 million, I think Josey Jewell's making like 5.5. That's what I mean. Like, I imagine the league would still look at those two players and evaluate Josey Jewell better, even if the box score would say otherwise this past season. You can get Alex Singleton back on a 1 year deal in that $3 to $5 million range. I think it's very appealing. It's just hard because you have so few assets. It is a very replaceable position, and you've already got a very promising option waiting in the wings in Jonas Griffith.
That's giving a lot of credence to Broncos country to have the respect that they need for that linebacker position, because oftentimes you hear that Josey Jewell isn't worth the snuff either. So I think there's a conversation out there that maybe just needs to be elevated in general, because the disrespect is a little bit weird. Mario, same question to you.
I mean, I'm with Zach on this. I think you bring back Alex Singleton. You're not going to pay him top 5 or even top 10 linebacker money. And I don't think he's going to command that. And I don't think that he's going to demand that, right? Like, you have a conversation with him, say, let's meet somewhere in the middle. Let's get you back here. We know that he likes Denver. He likes playing with Josey. He's good in this defense. He's good here. I would be surprised if they didn't bring back Alex Singleton. I'm not terribly worried about that. With Dalton Risner, everything that I've heard inside and out is that he is gone. And they don't want him back. He doesn't want to be back. And I think kind of like the very last straw was the Christmas Day game where he's pushing Brett Rippon, and it became a whole big thing. I don't know if you guys saw like the video that circulated where it was almost like a behind the scenes thing where it looked like somebody was filming it with their own camera, and you could kind of hear him like, "What are you going to do, Rip? What are you going to do, Rip?" It's like, bro, you're the Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate. And like, I'm not going to mince words and get into some big thing and make it that it's not. It's like, I know it's football and it's intense. Like, my God, carry yourself better. I understand that it was a really bad situation. That game absolutely sucked. But what are you doing to help? And the reason that I say that, I'm confidently saying that he should have handled himself better. The fact that Graham Glasgow, who was really like the glue that held that O-line room together, he was the seasoned vet. He was the elder statesman. Garrett Bowles wasn't there. And so he was like kind of the guy that everybody went to, so to speak, right? In that video, Graham walks right by and like gets out of the way and avoids, doesn't even say a word. And to me, that sounds like, well, he's too far gone and it's not worth saving at this point. So what does that tell you about the character of the person? Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But again, I thought that was like the last straw, and you're acting like that. And from what we heard, it was because they were getting crap for not helping their quarterback up, which is also like, that's BS. I don't care if the sack was your fault or not. If you're the closest guy to the quarterback, or if you're close, you need to bend your big ass over and you need to help him out. I don't care if he's playing like crap. I don't care if you don't like the guy. I don't care if he like had sex with your wife. It doesn't matter, because in that moment, that's your quarterback. You help him up. And that's the thing. I know. That was ridiculous. I'm sorry. But he did.
No, you're good.
He did, like, maybe, I'm sorry. Yeah. Maybe that would be the only reason that you don't help him
you
up.
wouldn't probably do it.
And to my knowledge, Brett Rippon wasn't having sex with Dalton Risner's wife. So he should have helped him up. So anyway, I think the long drawn out way of saying, I think Dalton Risner's gone. I honestly don't think that they're going to miss him, based on the fact that they tried to trade him during the draft. And I don't know if that ever came out publicly. I think like some people did share it, but they tried to move him. They decided that what they were being offered just it wasn't worth it going into that season. But yeah, like that shows you how much they really value him. And maybe he'll be good elsewhere. But really the only reason that he had such a good rookie year is because he was kind of covering for Bowles. So his rookie year, that was the year that Garrett was struggling a lot. And so Dalton's main job was to help Garrett. And then the year after that, when Garrett became all-pro because they put him on an island and Dalton kind of had to help Cush more and do his own thing, that was when the struggles began. So the only time that he was like a really good, like top half of the league left guard is when he was helping out the left tackle, like when that was his job. And I get what you're saying, Zach. The offensive line market, it's thin. I know they don't have a lot of draft picks. They're really thin at that position already. Like all across the offensive line, there's not a lot of guys. And honestly, that's what would lead me to believe that they restructure Graham again. I know a lot of people think he's going to get cut. I know you think he's going to get cut. Honestly, out of sheer necessity and the fact that he's a great locker room guy. And if anything, you have to keep him on there to kind of like keep everything reined in, especially if they don't trade Garrett, who is admittedly a very big personality and at times difficult to deal with. Having a guy like Graham Glasgow is almost like Garrett's handler, right? Mm-hmm. Where he's able to like rein him back in, not let him get too high, not let him get too low. And it's like they need bodies. They were also talking about free agency. Why not bring back Cam Fleming? I know that that's a name that people don't like, and I'm not saying that it's ideal, but he's going to be very cost effective. He's going to be super cheap. You could probably sign him to another 1-year deal for league minimum. He's serviceable at right tackle. And that's really, you have not gotten more than serviceable out of the right tackle position since Peyton Manning was your quarterback. Okay. You bring back Calvin Anderson, and obviously I'm biased on this one. But if you look at the difference between how Garrett was playing at the beginning of the year before he got hurt and how Calvin played when he wasn't being dicked around by Butch Berry and Nathaniel Hackett, he was playing really well at left tackle. Like Calvin naturally is a left tackle more than he is a right tackle. And Cam Fleming is a right tackle more than he is a left tackle. That's why it made no sense that Cam was over at left. Like that's not his natural position. But for whatever reason, they wanted to protect Billy Turner at all costs, who was probably the worst of the three of them based on what I saw at that given position. So you're able to bring back Calvin Anderson and Cam Fleming, maybe to you listening, maybe not the sexiest names. I get it. But you need guys in that room. They're very thin. I think Garrett is like the only tackle that's actually on the roster right now. Like there might be some bottom of the roster guys. But at this point, like you need bodies, you need depth. And those are proven dudes. Like they played well enough. And a lot of people are going to say, well, the offensive line was so bad last year. I know that they weren't great, but you can attribute a lot of that to the fact that no one had any clue what the hell they were doing on offense because they're basically running 3 or 4 different schemes throughout the course of a game. And also they had Butch Berry, who was the worst position coach in the entire NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just to that, add on to that, Mario, like good luck making this O-line just really, really good overnight. You're not going to just go into free agency and be like, here we go, 5 new O-linemen. It's going to be fantastic. Like, that's just not how it won't work. It won't work. Idea. I totally agree with you on Cam Fleming. I think the Broncos should bring back Cam Fleming. I think he'll be a cost-effective tackle that could get you through until you find the next guy. He is that bridge right tackle until you want to go get him a new person. I do think that makes a lot of sense with Cam Fleming. That is one of the guys on the top of my priority list as well. Zach brought up Alex Singleton. If the Broncos can bring back Alex Singleton, that would be fantastic. It is important in this defense for the middle linebackers to blitz and be effective in the net. And that's something that Alex Singleton showed us he was really good at this last year as a pass rusher coming through the middle of that defense. So those are kind of my two. I really want to see both of them for sure.
Lightning round, real quick. Running backs on the list for free agency: Mike Boone, Latavius Murray, Marlon Mack, and then Zach's favorite player, fullback Andrew Beck. Talk to me a little bit about what of the 4 players would you bring back? Latavius Murray, is that the only one, or do you think that you would retain Marlon Mack or Mike Boone for the right price?
Me, I'm not pressed. Like, if I can bring one of them back, I will. I'm not pressed. Like, Latavius Murray was good and stuff. Like, I like Latavius Murray, but I'm not pressed to bring anybody back. I have to see what I can get out there first before I'm giving away any contract to any player you listed. In my opinion, I know that's kind of a hot take with how people are viewing Latavius Murray right now.
This is why the Dre'Mont Jones penny pinching like drives me up a wall, because it's like, you want to pay Dre'Mont $18 million? We're 19 million, but his value 16. And then meanwhile, it's like, yeah, give $3 million to 31-year-old Latavius Murray. Who cares? Just throw it out there. It's like, why are we so flippant with the money there where we know where every bit of data in the world would tell us it's a poor investment? There, it's like, make it rain. And then when it comes to Dre'Mont Jones, it's like, we've got to be careful with our money. Don't let Dre'Mont Jones leave the building. Be a little crazy there, and then understand the replaceability of running backs. and be stingy there. At running back, again, because it is so replaceable, I'm not worried. I think you can find a Latavius Murray in the 7th round of the draft. I think you can find him on the undrafted market.
Pretty sure that I mentioned that person earlier in this pod.
Bingo. You can, it's super doable. Does anyone in their right mind think you're getting a Dre'Mont Jones in the 7th round of the draft? You're not. So with these running backs, I'd have a hard number for all of them. All of them would probably be similar to the contract Melvin Gordon signed this past season, like $1.5-ish million, which again, we care a lot about our money, but when 1.5 completely gets run on Melvin Gordon, no problem. I'd be like 1.5, and that goes for Chase Edmonds too. Like, you can save $6 million by cutting him. The fact that George Paton during his presser was like, yeah, Edmonds will be back next year, I feel like that's just trying to save face on the Bradley Chubb trade somewhat, because financially, I don't see anything that suggests Chase Edmonds is worth that $6 million when you can get out of it and take on 0 dead cap. So that's one where they better be restructuring, coming up with some sort of new deal, in my opinion. But all these guys, I don't see one that stands out as head and shoulders above the others. So I'd offer them all like, around that 1.5 mil number, because the Broncos do need bodies in that running back room. And the ones that are willing to take that number, I think it's worth it. But you want a shotgun spread approach at the running back position. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, we got to make sure we get Latavius. Oh my God, we got to make sure we get Marlon Mack. If you lose any of those guys, you're fine.
Bree, who would you like back?
Mario, I wanted to hear your emphasis on that, but I was just thinking Latavius Murray, I don't know what the solution is otherwise. I'm all about paying players. I think if you want to keep me do, but then I'm not really mindful of what it's going to cost and how that affects the cap later on. I don't like to pay attention to contracts. It makes me sad because the necessity of cutting players and talent is a little bit outside my realm of comfort. So when you start thinking about that, I think what Latavius Murray did for this team is reasonable. We know Javonte Williams is going to want to be back as soon as possible, but with the limitations with his current injuries and injuries being plural, I'm a little worried about not having enough. Obviously, moving on from prior running backs who were with the team was a good choice moving forward. I'm just concerned that there's not enough. Some people here at Let's Talk Broncos don't like to treat running backs as though they are people. So I would like to reference that. I think retaining the talent that you do have, and as they work with the offensive line to ensure Russell Wilson is able to quarterback at his best pace, I think that's the real trajectory there. I know he favors Latavius Murray. I think that's why that's the direction you want to go. Out of Boone or Mack, I don't know where he falls there, but I think Boone has been able to prove himself as serviceable in a replacement for Melvin Gordon. So I think that you stick with those guys until they're no longer your option. If they were commanding something ridiculous, I think I'd have a question mark. But at the end of the day, if you're not retaining what you have, it's the same point for Joey's offensive line take. If you don't keep the players that are there and you just create holes to create holes, you're creating a lot of variability that just causes frustrations, mistakes, and a high level of concern for the offense that needs to improve tenfold next season. So I think that creating the less amount of stir as possible, as long as the locker room is good, the roster is good, I think that's what's important to me in the running back room too.
Yeah, it sounds like they're bringing back Latavius Murray. I'm sure that they're not going to break the bank. And I'm sure Latavius Murray knows exactly where he stands as an NFL running back. He knows how old he is. He knows that he was basically signed, I don't want to say off the scrap pile, but he was on a team's practice squad. I know he had just played a game, but he was on a practice squad. Okay. He was elevated because he out of necessity, and then the Broncos signed him out of necessity. So if he comes back on a 1-year deal that's really cheap, it's yeah. And I know he has familiarity with Peyton. Peyton seems to like him. He's a great locker room guy. And I think that's something that they need to stress. You have an overhaul of culture coming, right? Sean Payton is bringing this entire overhaul. You have all these new coaches. You're going to have different dynamics. You're going to have a different approach to how this team is run. And so that's why it's so imperative to behind the scenes, look at guys that are great locker room guys, that are high character guys, which is exactly why, I'm not writing off Graham Glasgow. I know everybody is just assuming that he's going to get cut. And he does need to restructure, make no mistake about it. But you keep a guy like that because he's good for the culture. You bring back a Latavius Murray and Alex Singleton and Dre'Mont Jones because they are really good for the culture. But outside of that, outside of Latavius Murray and just strictly his familiarity with Sean Payton, none of those other guys are pressing matters. I think if Edmonds comes back, you 1000% need to restructure, because what is he getting, like $6 million? And he's going to be maybe the number 3 running back. And it's just silly to me that you would, you would keep around Edmonds, like, sure. But then if you're really wanting to address running back, this draft is unbelievably deep at running back. Like, there will be some good running backs who are not drafted that you will be able to sign in free agency, or that you can take, or in the 6th or 7th round. Rodriguez notwithstanding, like, there are a lot of guys that are going to drop. And what happens in these NFL drafts is, when a position like running back, which isn't necessarily like this huge pressing need, I think it's the 3rd lowest paid position in the league after kicker and punter, if I'm not mistaken. Teams aren't putting a huge high priority on running backs like that. And so really good running backs are going to drop unless they're a Jahmyr Gibbs or a Bijan Robinson, like guys who are akin to a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey that you structure your offense around. But that's a dying position. So I'm with Zach. You're not investing a lot in it, especially because, again, deep class. You're going to get Javonte back eventually. You restructure Edmonds. But what we've seen with Sean Payton, like, you need a pass-catching running back, and so maybe they address that, and they get a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. But if that's what they're looking for, it's not necessarily Latavius Murray.
And I will say, I don't dislike running back. I'll be very quick here, Bree. I don't hate running backs or anything. And I think it's easy to go that way with, like, the running backs don't matter, be cheap at running back, the churn and burn, that kind of thing. I think a big part of that philosophy isn't that, like, running backs are bad or running backs lack talent. It's that there's so many talented running backs and I think last year's Denver Broncos proved that. Like, they were thrown into a really, really bad spot. And they were able to find a Latavius Murray, who was a really functional back for them in a bad situation, off, like Mario said, the scrap heap. And I think that shows the argument for why the Broncos should be okay letting these guys walk is how easily they found all of them last year. The Dolphins were looking to get rid of Chase Edmonds. Boop. Yeah. Marlon Mack was just sitting there on the street. Boop. Tyler Beatty, who I think honestly might have the best NFL career of all of them, was just floating out there on the street. Latavius Murray was just on some dude's practice squad, and you could sign him. If the Broncos were thrown into the same position next year, again, that's not ideal. You do need talent at that position. I just think that's one where, like in the offensive line running back comparison that Bree made, it's so hard to know what avenue you can get an offensive lineman from. I think it's easier to chase those avenues down for running backs.
Mario, while you're out of the town, are you partaking in any adult beverages?
No.
Can we recommend one to you?
Can I recommend one?
Sure.
Okay. It's the oldest brewery in the entire world, Mario. It's Weinsteffen.
Tell me more about it.
It's 1040. That's when they started making this beer, in 1040. Weinsteffen, German brewery. The Hefeweiss beer is the one I would recommend to you.
Wait, is it like the year 1040?
Yes.
Is when it was founded?
Yes. Isn't that crazy? It's right.
I think that's when Mike Kliss was born.
I love it. You're not wrong. Okay. But the Hefeweiss beer is fantastic. It's fruity, effervescent, 5.4 ABV. It is the number 1 rated German wheat beer in the entire United States. So I would highly recommend this one. People, Mario, I won't even lie to you. I've been to this brewery before in Germany. They literally school people at this. And some of your favorite beers were probably, they learned how to make beer in Germany at the Weinsteffen brewery. They're the masters of the thing. So
this particular beer is fruity and effervescent.
Fruity, effervescent, a little hazy. It's good.
They should call it the Ben Albright.
Fruity and effervescent. I like it.
Good Lord.
Mario just starting beefs left and right.
He's like, who can I upset today? And let's do it.
Ben knows that he's fruity and effervescent, and Mike Kliss is too old to hear me.
He wears headphones when he listens to our podcast. Hi, Mike. Hope you're doing well. Guys, we're going to find your work. Mario, can you talk to us a little bit about your new Twitter handle as the artist formerly known as Mile High Mario?
Yeah, so haven't got my account back. Not feeling real confident about that happening anymore. But you can still follow me at Vetanze Therapy. I had to go over to my professional account, which was not great because now I'm tweeting unprofessional things from my professional account. So if you would like to see those unprofessional things from my professional account, that would be at Vetanze Therapy. And I'm sad because when I had my Mile High Mario account, I could tell people like, don't follow me, right? Because I feel like once you hit 10K, which I was kind of creeping up on, Twitter gets dumb and bad and really toxic. So it's kind of at the point where I'm like, don't follow me. Like, I'm good. Like, you can even shadow follow me if you want to see what I'm up to. But now I'm really sad because I lost a lot of those followers. And obviously my self-worth is tied directly to how many followers that I have on Twitter. So please, for the love of God, restore my sanity and go follow me at Vetanze Therapy. You can also see my stuff, vetanzetherapy.com. The last I heard, though, I think the website is down. So I do need to talk to my IT guy and get it back and running. But I'm going to offer this, okay? If you listen to this podcast and you want to come in for a treatment, I will give you $15 off of your first treatment with Vetanze Therapy. And I'm really good. Okay. I know that sounds like bragging, but to me, it's like with my profession, it's kind of like a professional athlete. Okay. In the terms of you have to toe that line of being cocky and confident. And if I don't know that I'm really good, much like if Russell doesn't know that he is a good quarterback, then he's not going to be. Okay. So I'm the best there is, plain and simple. Okay. I wake up in the morning and I piss excellence. All right. If you don't believe me, then you can slide into my DMs there on the Twitter and you can schedule an appointment with me. And I would offer a money back guarantee, but that's not the line of work that I'm in.
Yeah, use code Bop a Kangaroo. Mario's.
Yeah, I was going to tell the giraffes in, but Bop a Kangaroo is even better.
I swear, on God, I will do everything in my power to actually get you guys to fight a kangaroo. I'm going to start doing research. I'm going to reach out to the Denver Zoo and I'm going to say, hey, do y'all have any kangaroos that are in the mood to fight? Because I have a point to prove.
I love it.
You don't have any aggressive kangaroos. No, I want to vouch for Mario. Go to see him almost every single week, and he takes a lot of pride in his work. Makes me feel like I'm not nearing middle age, and I just feel a lot better every single week. So please, and thank you for offering that to LTB listeners. Get in there now. $15 off is a steal because you don't want to discount taking care of your body, and the older you get, it's just more necessary. So please don't take it from me. Take it from everyone else. Guys, where can everybody find your work?
Yeah, everyone, please follow me at JR Drafts. And then I'm going to be doing something a little different. So I will keep everyone updated with that while we get through. But follow me at JR Drafts meanwhile.
Yeah, get over at JR Drafts because you'll see all of his new exciting projects. I'm very excited to follow along with all that. Go over on Twitter and follow me at Zach_Seegers. I've got all your Colorado Buffs coverage. And I'll also probably have some more exciting LTV stuff coming soon here. So excited about all that.
Oh, yeah.
Literally the best Buff coverage, by the way, if I could throw that in there.
Thank you, Mario.
Really, 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 really good.
Yeah, it's
really,
fantastic.
Really, really good.
If you want average but still fun coverage of all things Mile High Sports, you can follow me, Bree Maestas 303. I tweet. I don't always tweet about sports. Sometimes it's just about my life. And if you like to laugh along with me, I highly implore you to go over there. No DMs.
Like if you want to see a close-up of all of the metal that's in Bree's face, she posts a lot of selfies.
I do not. A marginal amount of self. That's over on my Instagram. Follow me over there. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Happy Saturday or Monday, whenever you see this episode. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Mario, for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Two of my three favorite people. I love y'all.